Hello and welcome to my presentation on my vision for America. So America is a bit of a fixer-upper of a country. We are a nation that is built within the ideas of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It is baked into our foundation. It is instilled into the documents that founded our nation and provide a framework for our laws and ideals. The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and even the Bill of Rights, where we see that these ideals are promoted. And so we must try to recreate those ideals in government, in laws. And so to build our nation, to truly revision it, we have to just try to restore these simple doctrines. And the best way to do that would be through the philosophy of realpolitik as theorized by Otto von Bismarck. To put it simply, realpolitik is the idea of, it is the art of getting things done. It is a pragmatic approach to policy in a way that benefits the people through compromise and pushing forward legislation that helps everybody. You may not get what you want with realpolitik, but you will always get a solution that is appealing to the mass amount of people and prevents mob rule. We see that the majority will never be able to truly do much. We see that the minority will never be able to oppress the majority through realpolitik, but they'll have to listen to one another in order to get anything passed. And once we see these compromises being made and this philosophy instilled within our country, we should see improvements. We will see a revitalization of America and a brighter future for tomorrow. Now, to start off with, let's look at some of the ways and some of the policies that realpolitik can push forward. We can see the practice of pork belly spending actually increase within our Congress. Now, to quickly summarize, pork belly spending is the idea of basically, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. When it comes to legislation, this will often be seen on practice of, let's say the Democrats wants to put through a new commission in order to help with welfare within our nation, right? They want to look at how to properly address the homeless crisis, and so they want funding for this. The Republican Party wants to then go and increase security when it comes to voting and to prevent voter fraud. And so in order for each of these institutions to get funding, they need support from the other side. So instead of neither institutions being created, we see that they both get to be created because each side is like, hey, listen, man, I know that we have our differences and we may not agree on these, but if you're willing to let me give my input on this and I'm willing to listen to your input on my idea, then we are able to come to form compromises that are necessary in order to make these bills more moderate, and also so that way we are willing to make concessions to improve the bills and make it so that way we are both satisfied with each institution. Now, this philosophy can be seen on a multitude of issues, specifically with the infrastructure bill that was recently passed that was supported by both Democrats and Republicans. While in the infancy of the bill, during its first draft of trying to push forward change of $3.5 trillion worth of welfare, changes to the environment and energy, and the way that things are produced within the United States, we see that once the bill's budget was cut down to $1.75 trillion, that Republicans were willing to vote for it because they realized the benefits that could be brought from it without any of the harms of overspending that the bill initially had without compromise. So this practice of pork belly spending is something that will inherently help our nation. Next, I'd like to look towards the conflicts of interest that our country is constantly facing from lobbyists in particular. Now, lobbyists have always been an issue within America, but in particular, we've seen them have a vice grip on our Congress, preventing them from making any real change and not upholding the philosophy of realpolitik. Now, the way for us to deal with lobbying and to effectively dismantle it is, one, public outrage, but we also see that is not necessarily the most effective means. If people are willing to help fund one another in Congress and through their institutions and through their bills and passing the legislation that they want to get passed, and we see that there is increased transparency of Congress people and the money that they end up making from lobbying, then we are able to then dismantle the system and put public pressure to prevent the system from going forward. We will vote in congressmen that are willing to abolish the system and vote against it. And we can even see the president here use an executive order to go and prevent lobbying in order to restore faith within our democracy. Now, corruption has been a major issue with our Congress, and lobbying is the main cause of that. Because I'd like to specifically look towards Joe Manchin, who, because of his dealing with the oil industry, he is not representing the people of West Virginia the way that they'd like to be represented, and so he has been petitioned to be kicked out. And so once again, we can look towards the ideas of realpolitik here, which prevent this from happening, and we can look towards a strong figurehead like the president using an executive order to dismantle the system to show people what life is like without it. And so through these policies, through realpolitik, we can truly push forward a nation that is willing to listen to both sides, which is willing to make compromise, and we are willing to renovate and reinvent what it means to be an American and restore the luster to this great nation. Thank you, and that is all.